Hello to all you Patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 166 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the number one live podcast in Canada. We're recording on January 14th, 2019.
My name is Ian. I'm a target shooter, homesteading prepper, and the token Westerner.
I'm Gavin, and I'm prepping my liver for SHOT Show.
Good call. That's it's always good
more
to get
sleeps.
Yep.
All right, I'm Marty, hunter and sports shooter in rural southern Ontario.
As always, my name is Andrew. I'm a recovering libertarian, a competitive shooter, and a firearms instructor at Ragnarok Tactical. And if you listen to the show, you should use the discount code Patriot at checkout.
And we'd love to hear your feedback about the show. So please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. Version of the show is available on Stitcher and iTunes. We haven't had a whole lot of iTunes stuff lately, so click those 5 stars, on the iTunes. We appreciate it.
I think that whole Apple thing has been a fad. So
Profits are down significantly.
all right, you can check the podcast out at facebook.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast or Instagram at instagram.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast.
We need your help to support the show. Visit www.patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon. You can get a better quality version of the show for just $1 per episode. The more you pledge, the better the rewards are. Show you're not a communist. Buy a CPP t-shirt for just $19.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com homepage and follow the link on the right.
All right. It's time to do What Are We Drinking? Every week, What Are We Drinking is brought to us by our friends at Arrowhead Coffee. Arrowhead Coffee is owned and operated by Canadian Armed Forces veterans. They love our country, the true north, strong and free, their family and friends. Join Arrowhead Coffee on their hunt for the perfect brew to raise morale and bring that feeling of home to you, no matter where you are. A portion of all profits helps Canadian Armed Forces members, veterans, and their families. And this brings us to What Are We Drinking? Gavin, how are you exercising that liver today?
I am drinking Jack and Coke Zero. I'm off the ghetto train with the Grey Goose and Kool-Aid and onto a solid Lemmy.
I don't know if that's a step up, but well done. Ian, what are you drinking?
Well, judging by the fresh haircut and the fact that I'm drinking a green tea tonight, I'm the designated lame podcaster tonight. Duty calls.
Gross. Marty, what are you drinking?
I have the Crown Maple tonight with the Coke Zero.
You on the keto train?
Yep.
Yeah, good for you. I'm drinking beer. It's delicious. It's from BC, Granville Island Winter Ale. Fun fact, Granville Island, actually a peninsula.
It is not an island.
You fell off the keto train?
Oh, I waved bye-bye to that bitch. Like, bye, keto train. See you.
Yeah, I took a break over the Christmas holidays, but I'm back on it myself.
Keep the faith, Marty. I'm riding it as well.
Speaking of riding it, is your dog humping the sofa?
No, he was just readjusting to get a better sleeping position.
Oh, okay, I see.
Apparently, I'm disturbing him with my talking.
Well,
I feel like humping the sofa is far too much exercise for that dog.
Yeah.
All right. Toronto Sun article. Free speech policy mandatory on campuses in New Year. This is from just the end of December. The resident fat man bad in Ontario, our Premier Ford, has told colleges to get their shit together and produce an Ontario campus free speech policy.
About time.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed this has to be a thing. Naturally, OPSU has freaked out about this because they weren't consulted. OPSU is our public sector employees union. They're the people at the college that'll be impacted by this because they're going to be told they have to respect free speech. So naturally, they're losing their minds over this because they weren't consulted. Other fun fact, we already are supposed to have free speech, at least according to the people that were quoted in this article. I don't think they've actually read the charter, but there's an individual quoted in the article that quotes the charter saying that we already have free speech in Canada, which I disagree with.
No, we don't.
Yeah, I didn't think we did.
But it's not.
I mean, as long as it's not hate speech, it's free speech. But who knows what that hate speech is? I mean,
well, that part kind of worries me. The whole like you have to disallow hate speech because it's vague and poorly worded.
yeah.
Not only that, if the fact that they can make a law saying that you must call people by their preferred pronoun, if that law can exist, then we don't have free speech in this country.
Well, I would actually be in favor of if we had protected speech in this country rather than free speech, because the things that they the things that certain groups, particularly groups on the left, classify as hate speech, I think should be protected free speech. That you shouldn't like no one's going to get upset if you like talk about the weather. It's when you misgender them and when you say that, you know, communism is a failed system of government. And they get all triggered and upset about that. Like, this is the kind of hate speech that we ought to be protecting.
And I think this is the problem, though, is that a lot of people misunderstand what people say when they mean that. We don't mean that, like, you're free from, like, social consequence and peer pressure to not say things. You're just free from the government persecution. That's what you're free from.
Yeah, only speech that is upsetting to others is speech that is requires protection.
Yeah.
Well, I think you have every right to be offended by what you hear, but you have no right to get a person to change the way they speak because you're offended.
Yeah. And calling the government to bully them into changing the way they speak is ridiculous. Like, just move on.
Well, we've talked about this before. You can do two things when someone says something you don't like. You can either be offended or you can say something back, and only one of those outcomes is satisfactory. Just being offended in and of itself is that's not a satisfactory outcome.
Yeah. Just do something or don't. Just don't call the government. Like, don't get them involved in something that has nothing to do with them.
Other things the government shouldn't be involved in. Article from
everything.
CBC. This one's good though, and this is from our Western Canadian correspondent. This is in his neck of the woods. Safe Supply Program will distribute free opiates to entrenched users. 50 opiate users in Vancouver's downtown east side will regularly get pills to crush up and inject. Without government, who would do drugs?
Austin, how did they get this? How did they get suppliers to provide free drugs to the government to give to these people?
I think they wrote a prescription because they're giving these people medical grade pharmaceuticals.
But if they give a prescription, then that just comes out of our tax dollars.
Yes. You are in fact correct.
The article says it's going to be free.
Well, free for the people injecting crushed up pills, I guess.
Which is weird because I'm pretty sure I've said this before, but like, when I need to go and buy like diabetic test strips, I have to pay for those out of my pocket. Not even like out of my taxes that like I pay for and then I'll get back, but like out of my pocket after taxes, I have to pay for that. But these people that choose to do narcotics are getting them for free.
Yes.
If I may be allowed to go on a rant here for 1 second, it's very interesting the fact that so you're taking away the risk involved with getting into drugs, and you're taking away basically any incentive to get out of doing drugs, which is inherently bad at all. But you're enabling bad behavior. I mean, I don't want to get into family therapy moment here, but I mean, I did have two brothers involved with the drugs as well, and enabling the bad behavior does not work. I mean, it's quite simply like it's stupid. I don't know what the heck they're trying to prove here, but basically spending taxpayer money to enable the shitty behavior is not going to fix any sort of crisis.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that stops people from doing drugs is the availability of the drug and potentially the ability to afford said drug. If you're giving it away for free at a known location, that kind of eliminates those barriers.
Absolutely.
Just saying.
and it's going to be like a moth to flame type of thing. You're going to get more of the people you don't want there showing up there looking for the free stuff.
Yeah.
So as it is right now, this program is for 50 pre-selected addicts patients to get their opiates. I don't know that people are going to be lining up, but the wait list is over 75, so there seems to be some demand for this in downtown Vancouver.
Well, of course, free drugs, but not only that, but I mean, once they declare this program successful, well, then they'll just expand it. I mean,
So here's the thing. Okay,
Degents from the city.
For the
I don't
cost.
know if already heard me.
Yeah, I heard Degents from the city. Well, if they cover the cost, let's say so they say right now the street cost is $20 to $30. The cost of the pills through like legal means is 36 cents. So let's say we charge them $15 a pop or something like that. Enough that it covers the cost of the staff that's overseeing and
like
running.
The medical staff and the cleanliness of the place.
Yeah, then go for it. Like if they're gonna do it anyway, they're getting the correct dosage. They know the pill is, it's clean. It's not contaminated with anything random, and the dosage is being monitored so that it's a quote unquote safe dosage level. Fucking go for it.
But the problem is they're not that smart. They're not charging them $10 to $15. They're basically giving it away. And so not only that, but I mean, there's no hazard like a person won't stop doing drugs until they personally decide that they're going to get out of the drug trade and drug usage. And until that point comes, like until they hit rock bottom, they're not going to stop. So basically, all you're doing is delaying the decision to stop by providing them with a free, safe space, if I dare say, to do these drugs.
Yeah.
I mean, so they're just not going to stop. They're going to continue. They're being there for 20, 30 years to get in free drugs. I mean, assuming that they're...
Well, then, I mean, what's going to stop somebody from showing up to this place, getting free drugs, if they expand this and start taking whoever, and then turning around and selling those drugs?
Well, they have to be. They're using them under the administration of medical staff, so they wouldn't presumably wouldn't get multiple dosages and just like leave them in their pocket.
I don't know. I can't imagine the staff is sitting around and just watching these people inject drugs and then get all fucking high and lay there.
I have two problems with this. The first is their poster child that they interviewed for this story that should have died in a Wendy's bathroom from a drug overdose. Not editorializing, literally like almost died in a Wendy's bathroom from a drug overdose, who is now gone from volunteering at one of these safe injection sites to being on the payroll as a support worker of some variety.
That sounds like a whole lot of potential for abuse.
Well, so there's this problem where we're enabling these people that she has now saved other addicts who have also overdosed but didn't overdose successfully because she was there to save them. So we have that thing where we're enabling these people to continue making poor life choices, but we're also funding the medical providers to be at the safe injection sites when we have a doctor shortage in this country, where we have like real patients, people who should be under the care of physicians who can't see a family physician, but somehow we can cobble together enough doctors to run a safe injection site.
And not to mention that she was saved by, hopefully I'm pronouncing this right, the naloxone that they injected to them to overcome the overdose. So we already paid for that safety net. I mean, now we're paying for a second so-called safety net.
But like,
actually, fun fact
something here. Like, I'd have to imagine waking up high in a Wendy's bathroom. Like that's gotta be a wake-up call. That's gotta be a rock bottom. So maybe we just have these like quote unquote government safe sites, and then once they like inject themselves and kind of black out, we move them to Wendy's bathrooms and let them wake up.
I mean, this is a social program I can get behind. I would be okay with contributing some tax. Like, if I could direct some of my tax dollars towards that program.
Yeah, the Wendy's bathroom program.
Yes, the Wendy's bathroom program.
But like,
call it a Wendy's wake up.
Like,
get a free coffee too.
I'm kind of making light of like a terrible situation because like opiate epidemic in this country is an epidemic that our government and our media is not addressing. But at the same time, degents from the city.
Yeah, but like if she's a recovered addict, which if you talk to some people, and I'm not an expert on this, they are never recovered. They are always recovering, right? Like you are never not an addict once you're an addict. And they can tell you that like you shouldn't associate with those people and this and that and everything else, right? And here they are putting somebody that was an addict in charge of giving out narcotics to other addicts. Like that just seems absolutely absurd.
I don't know that we should draw that generalization. We don't know that a peer support worker is in charge of giving out the narcotics, but
even just being around it,
like, that that's my problem with this, is that she's being employed in some capacity in these safe injection sites to further encourage agents from the city.
There's so much potential for abuse if they continue to put recovered, in air quotes, addicts in charge of doling out any sort of thing, or even in any area where they would potentially be able to access those narcotics.
So I want to go back to something that Ian said about the naloxone that probably prevented her from dying during her initial overdose. I recently learned something fun in the province of Ontario, of which I'm a resident. The Ontario government is giving away free naloxone kits. So you can go and get a Narcan kit and get certified to use it. And there are some rules around that, but there are half a dozen places in my little community where I can go. Basically, every pharmacy in town has the government naloxone kits. And there are some rules. They're supposed to only give it out to like at-risk users and friends and family of people at risk. And also every prisoner released from an Ontario prison is certified in the use of and receives a kit for naloxone.
Us too, and that's why I wanted to bring it up as well, because when I did my, I take my daughters to their first aid course every time just to get them going on the program, and yeah, at the end of the younger daughter's first aid program, that's what's one of their selling points at the end of it is like, just so you know, folks, here's a sign on the board, free naloxone for anybody that you think might need it, or if you want to have a kit handy, feel free, go and grab one. Yeah, government paid, which means you and I paid.
Well, so tomorrow is my list of renewing my government documents because I have a bunch of things that I have to go and see the Service Ontario people about, which I'm using all of these terms very loosely, the service and the people part. The only factually accurate statement there is that I will be in Ontario. But after I finish renewing all of my government documents, I'm probably going to go and recoup some of my government taxes by receiving my free naloxone kits that I paid for with my taxes, because I don't want no fentanyl up in my business.
Yeah, I was thinking I should be grabbing one too. Why not? If it's free.
Yeah, you've already paid for it. You may as well get something for that money.
That's right.
It's not even that it's free. It's that, like, I am now at risk by responding to a motor vehicle collision or some other random person encountering some sort of an emergency, that I could now be subject to being contaminated by fentanyl. So yeah. I'm going to go get my government stuff. I'm going to get two. I'm going to get one to keep in my bag for me. I'm going to get one to throw at the addict when I pass them on the street.
Yeah, my search and rescue group in their first aid kits, they have it.
I mean, I'm not planning on like rescuing addicts, but my concern is that
if they so happen to be there and you happen to be there, you can just be like, here you go, bro.
Not at all. My concern is myself, a friend, or a loved one will be exposed to one of these illicit narcotics, and I will have the appropriate tools to remedy that situation. Also, I've already paid for it.
They don't happen to have something like that for like drinking too much in Vegas during SHOT Show, do they? Asking for a friend, of course.
Oh, well, we have the right friends. Just get somebody to put a saline drip, and you'll be fine.
Okay, sweet.
Just the trick is hydration.
Okay,
intravenous hydration.
Sure, you know.
Just remember, you are going to the desert, right? Hydration is key.
That's right. So if you can just
light beer only is what you're saying.
Well, isn't every American beer light beer?
Oh,
pretty much.
All right, let's do the worst website in Ontario.
Is it a government website?
Better
It's
Andrew.
a Lupin Press website. No, not betterandrew.biz. Nobody buys the .biz.
Well, I can think of one other company that does.
We're going to talk about Mincome. You know, the made-up word where it's actually communism and they're just redistributing my money to people that don't work. But also, seriously, the Lindsay Advocate, Kawartha Lake's finest magazine, the layout of this webpage. My God, the layout of this webpage is atrocious.
Yeah. I mean, it's Lindsay, though.
I would bet it's Kawartha Lake's only magazine.
I mean, if you're over 16 and you haven't got pregnant or got somebody pregnant in that town, you're ahead of the game.
Well, let's talk about Kyle. Kyle's in his 30s and he's married with a new baby. He works 50 hours a week, but he's still qualified for a basic income top-up, which is funny because I'm in my 30s and I have a baby, and I didn't get no government money. The government just takes 40% of what I make every week. I don't like Kyle. That's kind of the takeaway here.
Yeah, I'm just reading this quickly.
So I have a couple of issues with this. I mean, obviously the Lugan press is up to their normal tricks because people are worried and betrayed, and also we have like a bunch of fake journalism because they have made up stories about made up people, like Donna, who had a plan for her 3 years worth of goals to repair her home, and Kyle, who's in his 30s and married and has a baby and works 50 hours a week and gets his basic income top up, which I don't even understand how you qualify for basic income. Like,
so he gets what, 10 hours a week extra? Like,
yeah, welcome to
the top up.
Well, that's what I don't understand. Like, he works 50 hours a week. Even if he makes minimum wage, he makes like $700 a week. I don't understand how the government's topping him up. But like, I'm not getting any free money, and I work 50 hours a week.
Yeah, I mean, there was the other lady that was getting the money and like wanted to use it to start up a business or something.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Can't you just get a loan from the bank? Like, if your business idea is so good and is a guaranteed money maker, won't the bank give you a loan?
Well, so I'm actually convinced this isn't actually journalism. This is actually just like made up story time by the writer.
Probably.
Like yeah. I don't know who this author is. He writes for this outlet.
Well, it's not like he has to run it by the editor. He probably is the editor and owner and publisher and everything else. So I mean, he just writes whatever he wants.
Well, it does say that he is the publisher of the Lindsay Advocate. But yeah, so problems with the article aside, the actual data that he presents, aside from his like faking gay stories about people that are probably not real people, because, you know, why would you actually name people? The beatniks in this article couldn't even be bothered to fill out the survey. So of the 4,000 basic income pilot recipients in Ontario, 1,500 of them have agreed to help the Basic Income Canada Network and the Ontario Basic Income Network, which are other organizations pushing to redistribute wealth in this country. Of those 1,500 people, well over 400 responses to a survey have been received at the time of publication. That's over 10% of the total number of people involved in the basic income program. That's right. 10% of the beatniks could fill out a survey asking for more free government money.
Well, they're probably in the middle of a good Xbox game or something.
Yeah.
This is kind of my problem. Okay, so maybe Kyle that works 50 hours a week hasn't got time to fill out this survey. But faking gay made up Kyle aside, the rest of these people that are looking for this income to do whatever it is they do while they sit at home and play Xbox, they couldn't even fill out the survey to try and get more gibs.
Well, maybe they were too busy getting free narcotics.
Or protesting random stuff downtown, like, you know, not my president of another country.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. You know.
I don't even these people aren't even serious. They're not serious people.
A lot like the same Kyle that Gavin had interactions with his mom in her basement.
And that's why Kyle has a baby. No, wait. What? How does that work?
Well, yeah.
Close enough.
Oh, man, I'd forgotten all about that guy, Marty. Well played, sir. Well played.
Yeah. Go listen to our back catalog, because I don't even know what episode we talked about Kyle's mom on, but Kyle's mom, she's a big old bitch.
Yeah. Even more Well, I guess Kyle's even more of a bitch.
Yeah.
That's what they call it.
Yeah.
That's what they call a callback.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know what episode that was on. That was a while ago.
Yeah.
Well, a quick search tells me it might have been episode 122, but
Is that because
apparently we referenced Kyle on a couple of episodes.
Well, here's another one.
Yeah, I want to say it was episode 122, but yeah. Fuck Kyle and his mom.
Yeah.
Like Gavin did.
Yeah. And if this is the same Kyle, fuck him again.
50 hours a week, my ass. I don't.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah.
wait, there's more.
Sounds like
Yeah.
like that, Kyle.
Yeah, the wait, there's more. So the Ontario Conservative Party has canceled the Mincom pilot, which has caused much teeth gnashing and wailing amongst the communists.
Moga. That's all I have to say about that.
Well, the Liberals say that they're going to look at ways to provide minimum income to all Canadians, because basically that's what we're already doing through the child tax benefit and other government wealth redistribution programs. So says the shiniest of ponies.
No.
No, that's what he says. It's a quote in the article. Look on.
No. No.
So other Lugan Pressa CTV News article, in concert with the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development, Jean-Yves Duclos, or something. I don't know. My French is atrocious. This bald-headed individual in cabinet, in tandem with the Prime Minister, say that we're basically already doing Mincom, but we're doing it through too many programs. So we need to direct a greater number of dollars through a single stream to affected Canadians because of reasons that are not entirely clear to yours truly.
This is the problem, though, because even if this is a way to make things more efficient, we know that this doesn't mean they're going to eliminate government jobs and redundant positions and things like that and streamline it. It's everyone's going to stay employed. We're probably going to create new jobs, creating more inefficiencies just to create this new program and spend more money. That's how that works.
Well, the Liberals have never struck me as being overly concerned with efficiency. That's what really gets me with this second point.
But I mean, that's what they're trying to say by doing this, by saying that, like, oh, well, we're already doing this, but we're doing it through like whatever, how many programs. It'll be better and more efficient to do it through one, which makes sense on the surface. But that's never how it's going to be done. It's
if we eliminate all the other waste, fraud, and abuse that our government's participating in. But we're not doing that.
Yeah, like if we could just get rid of like healthcare and education and welfare and everything else, just get rid of all of those other social assistance programs and then just give people money that they can spend on the things that they need and want, that would be more efficient, right?
I have an alternative proposal. The government could stop stealing 40% of what I earn every year and giving it to beatniks who can't be bothered to fill out a survey.
That would also work. I'm on board with this.
So I feel like the Liberals are being fake and gay. Intellectually dishonest is probably a better term for it, but the quote in the article that I am going to read for that, the federal officials have considered the idea as one of a wide range of possibilities to reshape social safety net programs for a modern labor market marked by automation, more short-term gig economy jobs, and a need for people to retrain several times in their working lives.
No, get a career.
No, the Liberals actually just
good.
don't know how, they just don't understand how market economics works and how people get jobs. Because you shouldn't be retraining several times in your life.
And if you do, that should be out of your pocket.
Well, and that's part of the problem. They go on later in the article to talk about how our current social safety nets don't take into account the fact that a lot of people go back to school later in life. It's like, maybe those people shouldn't have taken basket weaving and interpretive dance as a major. Maybe they should have taken an actual STEM program that gave them life skills and the ability to market themselves as a valuable employee.
Yeah.
Or maybe just not go to post-secondary in the first place because most people don't need to. I mean, I understand in our labor market, like, in order to be marketable, the expectation is that you're supposed to have a post-secondary education, but most people don't need to go to post-secondary education in order to do the job that they do.
Yeah.
The entire thing is fake and gay, and the liberals bother me immensely because this program is poorly thought out and will be poorly implemented should they implement it. It will not help the people that they're saying it's going to try and help, and it's going to hurt the rest of Canada as a result, because I have to continue paying more of my tax dollars to wealth redistribution programs to people who refuse to work.
Yeah, and it's not going to be a replacing of inefficient programs. It's going to be a supplement to inefficient programs, which makes everything that much more inefficient and costly.
Well, absolutely, it's an expansion, but not only that, but I mean, the more lucrative they've made welfare, it's not like they've had less and less recipients. I mean, the more rich people get doing welfare, whether it be free cell phones or whatever have you, or the more kids they have, the more people seem to get on it. It's not a cycle that promotes people leaving it.
Yeah, I mean, when am I going to get my Trudeau phone?
It's a sign in the park that says "Don't feed the wild animals; they'll become dependent."
Yeah.
But here's the thing, though. So what it does do is it decentivizes people that have means and that actually are working for their money to procreate and have more children.
Well, absolutely it does. It's
So,
not
like,
even a disincentive; it's a punishment.
So, like, those that are, working and actually being contributing members of society, they're holding off on the number of kids that they have and things like that because of the expenses that are required to support that type of thing. And then meanwhile, we have, people that can't afford to have kids having all kinds of kids being supported by the other people that are working.
Kind of reminds me of that first.
Go ahead.
It kind of reminds me of that first 5 minutes of that movie, Idiocracy. Have you ever watched that one where basically the trailer trash has 75 kids and the dual income no kids type end up having no kids at all, and take it down 10 generations before you know it, there's a rock star in charge of the country.
Is this a documentary?
Brave.
Yeah, it turned into a documentary really fast. I know.
Yeah.
Sorry, so we're bleeding a little bit into the next topic, which is fine with me, but the point that Marty made a moment ago about people having children that they can't afford in order to get the free stuff. The child tax credit benefit, whatever it is under the current regime, because they changed it recently with the Liberals coming into power. If your child is between newly born and I think it's 6 years old, something to that effect, you can earn up to $6,400 a year. My wife and I are part of the middle class. We might, based on our income, be part of the upper class because we're right sort of around that cutoff point based on our gross income. We get $1,000 a year for our child.
Don't spend it all in one place.
The maximum amount is $6,400, and we get $1,000. But the government sees fit to take 40% of everything we earn off of our pay.
Well, yeah.
I don't even understand how that works.
But you get a free $1,000, so you should vote for that.
So I'm no mathematician, but 40% of what I make is a lot more than $1,000.
Oh, see, that's the problem. You're making too much money. You should be making less money.
Man, I read things like this, and I'm like tempted to maybe maybe I should just figure out how to lose my job and go on Pogie, because these people seem to drive cars and live in houses and not go hungry and have iPhones, and I work really hard to have those things.
Look at the entirety of the East Coast.
Oh, shots fired.
And I just found
newfies.
That you actually, if you get a cell phone on welfare, it's actually paid for by the government.
Yeah.
See, that's what I mean. Like, I feel like I'm working too hard to have these luxuries.
They probably have a better data plan than I do.
A data plan? No, I'm already married.
It's because you're not on Pokey.
And that's how you can tell he's an actual father. Dad jokes like that.
Come on, that's classic dad joke. It goes right along with my dad bod. No, but I seriously, I look at these people and I wonder what I'm doing wrong, because
Working.
these people are collecting money. And I mean, I work 40, 50, 60 hours a week. I have a small business. I work a second job, and my wife works full time when she's not collecting EI, because we're trying to maximize our government benefits because we paid into the fucking things. So I'm at least trying to get that back. And somehow I lose 40% of my income, and I see people that don't work or work very little, and they're getting the same free healthcare, and their kids are actually getting a free education, which mine won't because we make too much money, and they're getting their free cell phone. And I feel like I made the wrong choices. Right? Like, how do I get all the free stuff? Because they don't seem to be any worse off for not working, and they have the ability to not work.
And that's the inherent failure of socialism, because eventually enough people say screw it and decide not to work, or at least work a street sweeper kind of job, and before you know it, the entire system collapses in on itself because there's nobody pulling the wagon, everybody's trying to ride it.
See, I feel like I'm on the wrong side of the wagon. I got to figure out how to correct that, or at least get one of those street sweepers, because those are really cool shotguns.
Different type of street sweeper, but I get it.
No, I want that one.
Or an AA-12.
Oh, that's
With a drum bag.
My heart.
Well, I bet you if you'd be like FPS Rush, you could have like dual.
Oh, yeah. That would be sweet, especially if you could do that without the ATF rates.
Yes.
Or the accidental murders or whatever have you.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. We talked about that. We talked about the bleeding into the next topic. That was what I was gonna bring up, except I closed my show notes. Good thing I still have all my articles open. Three things, all related, or three things. Three links. I should use specific language. Three links. Fraser Institute, Canada's most right-leaning think tank. The Toronto Sun, one of the unfunded news outlets in this country, and the Lugan Press, Global News. So same topic all around. Fraser Institute released a study about taxation and how it's theft. Sort of. The effect of Canadian families on changes to federal income tax and CPP payroll tax. The Toronto Sun, 90% of families face tax hike over $2,200 beginning in 2019. And the Global News saying, reality check, are Canadian families really facing a $2,200 tax hike? The answer is no, according to Global News. But not before they smear the Fraser Institute as being like racist, right-leaning. I don't know what all their problems are. That apparently Fraser Institute bad. I don't know. I can't keep up with the NPC firmware. It changes too quickly.
Well, the problem is that even in the Global News article, they said that contributions to CPP and everything else can't be counted as a tax because it's just deferred income, except for, of course, if you make too much, in which case they'll claw it back in retirement. For example, like anybody with the golden defined benefit pension or whatever have you, you make too much in retirement, you're not going to see anything that you've been contributing to for 30 years. Just like a RCMP officer that's never going to get laid off, that contributes to EI for 35 years and never going to see a benefit from that either.
Yeah,
well, this is part of my problem with the Lugan Press article, which is why I threw it in there for the contrasting opinion to the Sun article, since they're both referencing the same source data. And admittedly, the report is long and boring. It's 8 pages of numbers and graphs, and I can understand that journalists have a hard time consuming that much actual detailed information.
You mean facts?
Yes, that's what I mean.
Okay, yeah. Just wanted to make sure we're on the same page.
Yep. So the CPP tax thing is not the only part of the $2,200 equation. It is a substantial part of the equation, though, like 50%. So Global News trying to play that off as being that CPP is not the only thing, and even if it was the only thing, it's not a tax, is intellectually dishonest of Global News, or I guess the author of the Global News article, this Monique Scotti person. I use the term person and journalist loosely in this case. I don't understand how you can say that the CPP is not a tax. The government is taking your income when you earn it, and they may or may not give it back to you depending on economic circumstances at some point in the future.
Oh, that's exactly right. It's taken off my paycheck, and there's no chance I'm going to see it again. It's a tax.
Yeah, that's how I can't opt out of it. I can't choose how they spend it. I probably don't get to see it again. It's a tax.
That sounds like theft.
Well, it's not even put into a specialized account for CPP per se. It's put into general revenue because there's no ongoing account set aside for CPP. It comes out of ongoing revenue. So, I mean, and they have to borrow money to make ends meet. Therefore, it's a tax.
Yeah, so the Lugan Press is saying that it's not a tax, I feel is intellectually dishonest. I mean, the Fraser Institute was somewhat unclear in their report because the $2,200 takes into account the full value of the CPP increase, which will take another 6 years to come fully into effect. But it's an incremental increase over those 6 years. So, yeah, okay, it's probably not a $2,200 tax hike next year, but this is contributing factors to what 90+% of Canadians are going to see as an increase in, or rather a decrease in their take-home pay from their normal above-board jobs.
So it's a tax.
It's a tax.
And
all right.
Taxation is theft.
Taxation is theft.
Yeah, if someone is taking your money, a threat of violence, and you don't have any say whatsoever as to where it goes, what it does, like this is, I don't see how this is anything other than theft.
Yeah. Well, speaking of violence, we should talk about the Defense Department. We got our new fighter jets. Sort of. The deal went through to buy the used Australian F-18s.
Well, they're new to us.
So they've been previously enjoyed, gently loved, 32-point inspection.
Yeah, only flown by little old ladies every other Saturday.
That's right. So we started to take delivery of the F-18s from Australia. I believe the first 2 planes are already here or are on their way here, and we might see them flying as early as later this year. I'm not sure how that works because it reads a lot like we bought non-functioning aircraft.
Well, we already have a pile of non-functioning aircraft already in mothballs, but yeah, I mean, interesting enough, I don't think there's anything like super secret, high intensity, top secret stuff here going on. But McLean's had an article a few years ago about how our current jets, after being flown for so long, were limited to what they could actually do during training. Because if they pulled too many G's in tight turns, they would actually rip the wings off because of the metal fatigue. So I can't imagine these Australian ones being any better with a similar age kind of construct between them. So what are we supposed to do with them? Just fly straight lines with them, kind of back and forth? Or like, I mean...
Well, I mean, so the good news is that we probably only need to fly straight lines with them because we're helping the Americans and the UN fight wars against people in desert countries with AK-47s.
Are we going to be allowed to whip these ones out?
No.
Show them how big they are?
Definitely not.
So I will argue that these ones are better because these ones have kangaroos painted on them.
Ooh.
Not for long. They're going to repaint them.
What?
Whip out our CF-18s and show them how big they are.
And they probably have an 8-track tape of Men at Work inside them, too.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Yeah. Is this going to be like the tanks, though, where, like, it's stuff that, like, we sold them, and then they just put new badges on it and then sell it back to us?
Well, so there is some stuff that we have to do to these because apparently the existing CF-18s that we have aren't allowed to operate in civilian airspace. You know, most of the country.
What do you mean? Like they don't have turn signals or something on it? Like is it?
I don't know what the technical problem is, but yes, it's something to that effect where they are not up to code to fly along civilian air travel routes.
Can't the government just go, these planes are exempt because government? Like,
one would think that, but
it's an airspace separation thing. They don't have the vertical separation ability, so they actually can't maintain a safe distance from other airplanes. So they have to kind of be given a wide berth. So if they go traveling through the regular corridors of air traffic, unfortunately, they kind of jam up the backlog of traffic. So they have to kind of sneak in sideways.
And this is why we keep you on the show.
Yeah, see, I mean, they got to be good for something.
So there are other things that have to be done to avionics and comms gear to make the new Aussie jets up to snuff. And I mean, like some of this stuff is ongoing life cycle improvement stuff that our own CF-18s were going through anyway, because commo gear changes over time. And the same thing with the avionics package. Over time, that stuff gets better and changes.
Well, and the robot voice that, like, for the voice command probably needs to get rid of the Australian accent, right? Because it's all voice command stuff. Like,
turn left in 200 meters, mate.
Yeah.
Crikey, got a fighter on your tail.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is some of that stuff that we have to do to our existing fleet of aircraft, and they're going to have to do it to the Aussie planes too. So 18 of these planes are supposed to end up being airworthy, and 7 are supposed to be used for testing and spare parts.
And we've already been cannibalizing our own for so long, we're probably out of those spare parts, so it's probably just in time.
Well, and the good news is we're only supposed to do another 20 years on these aircraft before they get replaced.
Only? That's nothing.
Well, it kind of be like the helicopter thing. They'll just they'll end up buying the same F-35 they were supposed to buy originally, but after paying the cancellation fees and everything else, just like the helicopters before.
So that's another thing that further down in the stack, we've got the slow death of the duct tape military, but I mean, that comes up. The Sea Kings have been in service since the early 60s. A third of our Sea Kings have blown up or crashed. Like the Sea King helicopter is a giant disaster. The CF-18s will be over 50 years old by the time that they retire them with whatever they end up retiring them with.
So you remember when, like, Canadians developed a plane that was, like, so far beyond everything else at the time, and then we buried it at the bottom of a lake?
That'd be the Avro Arrow.
I don't remember it, but I'm aware of the project, and I am deeply disappointed by a lot of things, which I guess we may as well transition to that topic. There's
we probably need to buy planes if we, I don't know, just made our own fucking planes. Just saying.
I still am. I am not clear why we need these aircraft. We are not performing air superiority missions against third world nations with insurgent fighters using AK-47s.
And by that you mean whipping them out.
Whip out our CF-18s and show them how big they are.
Yes, but we're not conducting air superiority flights against, Russian strategic nuclear bombers. We're bombing people from third world countries with AKs.
Yeah,
and defending the North against the Russians.
But we're not conducting air superiority flights against the Russians. That's my whole point. Like, we're not doing that.
It's interdiction only. So all they do is they will fly straight towards the Russian bombers, do a UE, and then follow them. They basically pace alongside them. That's all they do. They don't do any air combat.
Do they do international communications?
No. Unfortunately, it's not like this.
I flipped him the bird.
Because I was inverted.
Bullshit.
Yeah, so our military is kind of a national embarrassment, I guess, for the people that know we have a military. I don't think that, Cityots in Toronto don't know we have a military because they don't see it, because there's Cityots in Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go to Fort York,
your government's an embarrassment.
There's a few other modern military buildings there where the actual military is, right in Toronto. And then another one not that far away, a few blocks away.
No, honestly, our whole government, most of we're not a serious country is part of the problem. We are not a serious country. So we don't have a serious military. For reasons that I'm not willing to explain. It came up at work the other day. Somebody that plays video games in my group was talking about sniper rifles. And I'm like, oh, I know a little bit about shooting. Okay. So there was a debate about who has the longest shot. I'm like, oh, well, it's an unnamed member of JTF2.
Yeah.
He has the longest confirmed combat kill in Mosul, Iraq. and it was 3.5 kilometers. The guy's like, no, it's not. It's an American. I'm like, no. Out of the top 5 shots, like it's like 3 Canadians, a Brit, and a Yank.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we have it by a kilometer.
Yeah.
Like,
And it was even on the front page of the paper for like 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, we have one of the best trained, most effective fighting forces in the world. And we have had that since the end of the Second World War, arguably since the First World War. Because
Which is
as
amazing how shitty their equipment is.
Right. But we have really well-trained people using really crappy gear. Because our procurement process, see the CF-18, F-35 Sea King, for examples, we used to have the 3rd or 4th largest Navy in the world?
4th largest Navy.
And the 6th largest Air Force, something like that? The 8th largest Air Force at the end of the Second World War?
Yeah, and carriers in the 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah, up until 59 or 60, I think.
Yeah, the Bonaventure, and I can't remember the other one, but...
And I mean, yeah, okay, so they're not like the crazy American carriers that are like nuclear powered and are floating cities, but I mean, like we could conduct actual...
Yeah.
But we could conduct like real actual air superiority. Like we could project force around the world through arms. Like one of the few legitimate purposes of government in my mind. And as it is now, our military has 3 missions and we're failing 2 of them spectacularly. We are unable to provide for a proper national defense. We were unable to provide for a proper continental defense in concert with the Americans through the NORAD program. And we have the peacekeeping missions.
That doesn't sound like that should be of national concern. That is not.
No,
that is not a real mission.
Peacekeeping missions are not my problem. 100% not my problem. We should not be spending blood and treasure in other countries to enforce the will of the UN or other governments on their people. Like, what they do in other countries is not my problem. I want our military in my country, protecting my border, and enforcing the sovereignty of the crown. That's it.
Yeah. And
I
if
don't want our guys
want to pay the UN to send troops, they can pay the troops.
Well, no, they can pay me, and they can pay Ragnarok Tactical, and I will provide well-armed mercenaries.
Yeah, that's basically what I mean. That should be legalized mercenary work. That's how that works, right?
Well, and I mean, like, wow, we could have a whole discussion about how mercenaries actually work and have worked throughout various times in history, but we're not a serious country. We don't have a serious military. We've been involved in Afghanistan for 15 years at this point. Oh, when was Roto 1? Like 03?
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah, something like that.
We're still involved in Afghanistan. We're involved in Mali. We're involved in all these other peacekeeping operations around the world. Our Navy is doing Coast Guard work with drug interdictions and trying to keep people from illegally entering our country through coastal regions.
You forgot air quotes around trying.
Well, failing miserably. Our submarines can't conduct Arctic operations, and they don't have support bases in northern Canada, even if we wanted to conduct our Arctic operations, which we can't do half the year anyway. Our Air Force can't project air superiority because we can't actually fly interdiction flights against the Russians, which are realistically the only nuclear threat we face. Like,
we can't even do a proper job of search and rescue up north.
No, and I contend that the job of search and rescue shouldn't fall to the forces. Like that's
It's something they adopted, though.
I realize it's something they adopted, and I mean I know some guys that do SAR, and they're like solid work. Like what they accomplish with the equipment that they have is like phenomenal work, but also not the mission of the military.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah, the problem is, and this is something I learned when I was doing some training the other week, is that like it depends on the province that you're in and how they allocate the funds and stuff like that. And apparently, like Ontario, they've allocated all of the funds towards the police. They are the ones that are technically in charge of all of that. Other provinces, they fund private groups because that shouldn't fall on the police either, because their job is to enforce laws, not go looking for missing people. Much like the military's job isn't to go find missing people either, it's to enforce our borders, not peacekeeping.
Yeah, I'd like to see us out of the UN and stop buying useless crap from the Aussies or the Brits, and actually enforce our borders and maybe work with our American and NATO and UN allies in, you know, things that our military should actually do. Because I mean, this is like probably my own bias from my own experience, but like the job of the military is to kill people. Like that's what the military does. That exclusively should be what the military is trying to do. Yeah. There are some ancillary things that the military happens to be good at, but we only have it to enforce our political will on people that are being disagreeable to our nation's efforts.
Yeah. And that stuff that they do also well makes us better at killing other people. Like, it's stuff that needs to happen so that we can get the people that kill people where they need to be, or keep them safe, or things like that, or make them more efficient killing machines.
So I'm like on board that, yes, when there's a forest fire, deploying the military to help with that natural disaster, probably a good training exercise for the military.
Yeah, but free training.
But domestic disasters are not the reason we have a military. The reason we have a military is to go and kill our enemies when our political masters are not able to resolve it through political means.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, like, so we gave Bombardier like a shit ton of money just because they're terrible at doing business. How about like we should have just like given them money and said, build us fighter planes. Like, they build planes.
I don't know that I want our military trying to procure Bombardier aircraft.
No, but you know what I mean? Like, we could have done something like that, which would have been more beneficial. Then we would have had our own new planes. We would have kept them in business. And we wouldn't be relying on buying used shitty planes. At least we would have got something for our money instead of giving them a shitload of money and they continue to do shitty business.
Fair. Do you know who else does shitty business with our military?
Everyone?
Well, I was going to say our government, but yes. From the Nectarine, Trudeau government cuts $1.8 billion in pension funding to disabled Canadian veterans.
Oof.
So I'm pretty sure that was a campaign promise that they have now broke.
Yeah.
Well, they have to pay for those $50 million pledges to South Africa somehow.
Well, and again, this is part of my problem. Why are we funding other nations' problems? This is the same reason why we have our military involved in peacekeeping countries or peacekeeping operations in other countries that are not Canada. I don't care if people in the Balkans shoot one another. That doesn't impact Canada. Yeah, it's terrible, and yeah, somebody should do something about it. But those people are people that live there. Not me, not Canadians, not our military.
Or at least people that live a hell of a lot closer and potentially are affected by it.
So $1.8 billion in cuts over the next 4 years, reducing pensions for our veterans because
they're asking for too much.
I mean, I don't even know where, like, how much money, like, pick a thing that we've recently given money to for any other country, and $1.8 billion that we're cutting to veterans. Like,
and imaginary
why
pipelines.
Even have?
I mean, we spend money on imaginary pipelines to get, virtue signal, and yet
$5 billion on imaginary pipelines.
50 million.
How many hundreds of millions?
American celebrity on Twitter.
Yeah, what was that Twitter battle that we talked about a while ago? That was how many hundreds of millions of dollars did we pledge to, like,
50 million
reproductive rights in Africa?
Or that, yeah.
Yep. 150 million to the Clinton Foundation.
So that's going to fund the other side of the war that we're funding.
Yeah.
I don't... Stop giving my tax dollars to other countries. Like,
yeah, especially
again,
shitty
like,
ones.
one of the few legitimate purposes of our government, in my mind, is to provide for national defense. And part of that is pensioning disabled veterans.
Well, it's not even that. This is what when they signed up, this is what was agreed to. That's a contract, which is one of the other things the government is supposed to enforce is contracts and legal things. Give them the things they were promised. No one's asking you to do above that. Just give them the things that you promised. Don't be shitty.
That should be a political party's motto. I would run for and vote for that political party, the "Don't Be Shitty" party.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how
the shitty party won, because the shitty party from the shitty city and the shitty fucking provinces, specifically Ontario and our shitty city of Toronto, they elected these assholes.
It'll be interesting to see with this recent cabinet shuffle how more our veterans get screwed, because they recently shuffled Seamus out of Veteran Affairs and put whoever came up with C-75, which is a total shit show, in charge of that now. So
yeah,
they'll get even
Drinky
more.
McIrishman is now in charge of Native Affairs instead of Veteran Affairs.
Yes.
Also, Philpott, the MP that has the honor of being as being a recurring segment on our show for how terrible her fiscal responsibility is and judgment is now the member of our what is it? What is the council? The
Treasury Board.
Treasury Board. Thank you.
She is now the Treasury Board president, thanks to the new shuffle. A person who we have named a segment on our show after because of her constant boondoggles and financial mismanagement of her position in cabinet. She is now in charge of the Treasury Board.
Some galactic irony going on.
She's objectively very hideous.
I don't think there's anything about that at all. She's just
like, I mean, like, there's some ugly politicians out there, but like, damn, she ugly.
Yeah.
It's probably the problem glasses. That's likely the issue.
Yeah.
I call them that because you know anyone that wears that is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So let's do another one. Guns in the news this week.
Yay!
Guns are fun.
I love guns. God, I love guns.
Yeah.
If you're not a member of the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights and you're listening to the show, I question why you're doing one but not the other. You should be a member of the CCFR. So,
as a quick little aside, on episode 3, I think it is, of their new TV show that's going on, Andrew and I and my girlfriend Angela make a brief appearance.
Oh shit, we're on TV?
Yeah.
You're on Downrange TV?
Yeah. Apparently they filmed us incognito like at the select shooting range day.
What? I didn't sign a release.
Yeah, so when you're not buying from Ragnarok, you should also buy shit from select shooting because Dean's a good guy. But
So what?
come to us first. And then,
So what you're saying is Andrew decided to do a guest appearance on Rod's show?
Yeah.
That's
because
pretty good.
I contend that Rod didn't know that I was on his show.
But that's because we are the real celebrities.
So, gun news this week. We have 2 articles, one from the Star, one from the CBC, both the official Lugenpresse. The exemplary U.S. citizen used his Nexus Pass to smuggle 67 guns into Canada. And he's been sentenced to 8 years in prison. So, Jackoff McJackoff from Michigan, who's a veteran and is married to a woman from London, Ontario, of whom he has 2 children with and acts as a father for her 2 children from previous relationships, apparently contributed to the unusually high homicide rate in Toronto by smuggling 67 guns into the country. I have a lot of questions. A lot.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, it's not Randy Jackson from the TV show. He's not the youngest of the Jackson 5 or anything.
Oh, man.
No,
that would have been
no,
way
it's a
cooler.
different Randy Jackson.
All right, just making sure. Second of all, I don't even understand why there's a sentencing involved with this newspaper article at all, because when you sign up for a Nexus card, the fine print reads, you agree to the maximum penalty allowable if you get caught fucking up, basically, in breaching the context of the Nexus Pass.
So, yeah. So his Nexus Pass is one thing. Also, the fact that he only got 8 years for illegally selling 67 firearms.
Yeah.
So that's not even 1 month.
Traffic. You only pled guilty to trafficking 4 weapons. So that's where the 8 years. Although it's still not enough.
Right, but that's only like 6 weeks per gun.
It's 0.7 months per gun. I just did the math.
Oh, is it? Okay, so it's less than what I said, because beer.
No, 4 weapons. That he was tried and convicted based on 4 weapons that they found on his person.
Right, but he admitted to smuggling 67 other guns into the country and then selling them to criminals. Well, selling them illegally.
So
they sold them to criminals. We don't know who he sold them to.
Yeah,
we know that 50 odd of them are still unaccounted for, and the police have recovered approximately 20 that were used in the commission of crimes, or found at the scene of a crime, or found in relation to a crime, or something to that effect.
So I agree with you, but in terms of his trial, because our government is shitty and bad at their jobs, they tried him based on the 4 weapons only.
No, that's good. We're good. The show's over. Thanks for tuning in. Our government is shitty and bad at their jobs.
Yeah.
So like, in terms of his sentencing, it's not like it's not that they gave him 0.7, of a month per firearm. They only tried him based on 4, and that's
stupid, fake and gay.
So like if I get if I get arrested for something and get up and go, yeah, I also murdered 6 people, they can't do anything about that?
Yeah, that was anything you say will be used against you.
Yeah.
One thing at a time, and we're just going to concentrate on this DUI right now. We'll get to that other thing some later time.
I
hate our.
Remember when we had mandatory minimums and gun owners were subject to those rules, and like, if I do something nefarious with one of my firearms, I'm going to go to jail for like 5 years.
Dude, don't forget that little piece of paper that comes with your license. Don't forget that, because that's what, like 5 years.
Yeah,
but don't forget C-75 that makes all these guys get off fucking scot-free.
Yeah.
I am deeply disturbed by the level of fake and gayness that our government is exhibiting in this case.
Yeah, it's... yeah. I mean, I don't even know where to start. Like, it's so infuriating that, like, we do any tiny little thing and it's not like a slap on the wrist. It's jail time and massive fines.
We make a paperwork crime and we go to jail for 5 years and lose our guns for life. Yeah. This guy smuggles in 67 guns and sells them illegally in Toronto.
Yeah.
And he goes to jail for 8 years.
Yeah, it doesn't even get blamed.
Why are we jailing a foreign national? Can we not deport this asshole back to the country from whence he came?
They have to serve a minimum amount in Canada before they get the remainder of their sentence back to the country.
Fuck that.
Do they have to, though?
Yeah, there's something to do with the country of arrest.
Do they have to, though?
No, they shouldn't have to, but they do.
There you go. That's what I'm after.
Deport him.
There's something here that's interesting.
Build a wall. Deport him.
Ultimately, he was charged with the 4 that he was found smuggling in his underwear across, right? That's what his ultimately.
No wonder he got shot.
Sounds super uncomfortable, but all right.
Yeah. 4 guns in your underwear. Or are you trying to fool, bud?
Now, later on in the article, it states that 15 of the purchased firearms, including the 3 he was carrying stuffed in his underwear, have been recovered at various crime scenes in the GTA. So they caught him with them in his underwear and then continued to the purchase, like continued the sale?
No, I think that's just a poorly worded part of the article because the guy that writes for the Sun, or pardon me, for the Star, is not good at his job. Or pardon me, I shouldn't gender them. It's entirely possible that Betsy Powell identifies as some other gender.
I just don't.
But it's poorly worded. So they recovered approximately 15 firearms in total. Of those, he had in his possession, in his underwear, 4 at the time that he was arrested. The remainder being what TPS and other agencies have recovered at the scenes of various crimes.
But isn't this how, like, criminal investigations work? They catch you for one thing, and then they continue to investigate. And, like, okay, so if he says that they had 67, and then they found whatever it was, 15 of them, shouldn't he be charged for all 15 at least that they have found?
I see what the problem. You're not taking into account the fact that he was, quotes, deeply sorry for what he did.
Oh, okay, yeah, that explains it. My bad. Yeah, sorry, my bad.
I understand that's why he was tried and sentenced as a Canadian.
Yeah, because he apologized. Yeah. He's probably going to go to a sweat lodge for a couple of weeks. Sweat it all out.
I mean, if we can't deport him, could we hang him?
Hemp will save the world.
Like, I don't. If you or I, like, if some legal gun owner on this panel, if I went out and sold 67 guns to gangbangers in Toronto, I'm going to jail for the rest of my natural life plus 10.
And he'd be the poster child for gun control.
Yeah.
Right? But, like,
he'd also be rich.
Homeboy from Michigan does this, and his baby mama lives in London, and he's going to jail for 8, and then he's getting out. And how much you want to bet when he gets out? We're still doing this show, and his baby mama still live in London, and he still drives back and forth from Michigan every weekend.
Yeah,
and
but, like,
he's going to be out in 3, not out in 8.
Yeah, and, like,
well,
when
good
you
boy
live
behavior.
When you live in the murder mitten, though, you get a little, like, leeway on what is and isn't acceptable behavior. For those who
as fuck.
For those of you that don't know, Michigan's the murder mitten. Look at it on a map.
Any of us do this, and we're going to jail forever, never seeing guns again. This guy's out in 3 for good behavior and gets to drive back and forth across our border every weekend to go and bang some chick in London.
Yeah, probably not even his girlfriend.
Infidelity. It's funny because cultural norms.
Oh, well, hopefully someone bangs him while he's in prison.
You got a purty mouth, boy. I don't think I have any other news. Let's talk about the feedback from last week from Todd. So Todd sent us an email. I poo in yellow vests. Todd writes, I'm in my 50s and I never expected to see an Islamic party and a yellow vest protest in my country, but here we are. I see a bit of a silver lining with I poo. All the turds in one pile.
I don't know about all of them.
A wake-up call to complacent Canadians. Beer, you know. A wake-up call to complacent Canadians who think bringing in adherents to this cult is okay. It will drain votes, most likely from the Liberals. And it doesn't look very good on the shiniest of ponies, the turd hole. I'd be interested in your opinions on the Yellow Vest movement. Cheers, Todd. I mean, we call the shiny pony a lot of names, but I don't know. It is not good optics on us to call them a cult, even if that is what they are, and it's not a good optics for us to call him names. Although the shiny pony thing, I mean, if the sock fits,
yeah,
show them off.
And he does have a fabulous mane.
It's true. So yeah, I don't know that we have all the turds in one pile. I don't know. I don't think that the adherents to the religion of peace are necessarily the problem. There are a lot of other systemic issues. That is one facet of it.
Yeah, I mean,
you're probably right that anybody that votes for IPOO, should they form a real party, will probably have been a Liberal voter otherwise, except for the fact that IPOO is the most conservative party in Ontario.
Yeah, and I mean, IPOO has as much right to exist as any other religious-based party in Canada, and there are several. I don't like it.
I disagree with you on the religious-based part, because even the Christian Heritage Party is not about like making people practice Christendom.
No, but they have as much right to exist as any other party, religious or shitty idea based as anything else, because that's how our system works. Like,
You don't have to vote for them.
yeah.
Well,
I don't like it. I don't like. There's a lot of parties I wish didn't exist.
like the Communist
Party, yeah, the
Or
NDP, the Liberals, like pretty much all of them. But this is the system we live in.
It's not for individual freedom nor individual responsibility.
Yeah, there's some weird.
So they're as communist as the rest.
Yeah.
As for the Yellow Vest movement,
they're not bringing for responsibility, and they want the government to provide money and housing and food for everybody. This is not a conservative nor right-wing group at all. This is a shitty group like all the rest of the leftists.
It's a joke, though, right? Like, I'm making a joke.
Well, and like I said when we were talking about it, they're the weird nexus where the left and the right go so far left and right where they meet back up again. And in some ways, they're super, super conservative. And then other ways, they're super, super wanting to take all of our money and redistribute it.
Just let me do the bit. I just want to do my bit. That's
all right. Do your bit.
Anyway, but aside from the disagreement regarding IPOO or not, Yellow Vests. Who wants to have a crack at this one? Because I got a hot take, but it's not a long take.
My take is that I don't necessarily agree or disagree with some of their stuff. I think that the problem is that we are mimicking something that the French are doing, and then not necessarily mimicking it. We're just kind of stealing the yellow vest thing and then doing our own thing. But they're trying to do too much and stand for too many things all at once, which I think is the problem with a lot of groups that protest things. They should just kind of pick one issue and go with that.
Anybody else?
I only find it curious as to the absolute lack of media coverage, which is telling it best.
Agreed. That's what I was going to kind of comment on. It just like the fact that this is predominantly out west. This is a big thing, and there's a lot of like a large groups of people and a lot of issues around this yellow vest thing, and zero coverage in the media about it.
Yeah.
There's thousands of people showing up at these yellow vest rallies and zero media coverage. Like, this just does not exist in the Toronto area.
So here's my thing with this. The entire thing in France and Canada, on both sides of the spectrum, not being reported in the media and being reported in the independent media, fake and gay. There have not been significantly reported protests in France in almost a month. They went from at their height having tens of thousands of people protesting in downtown Paris to having less than 8,000 people 2 weekends ago. That was the most recent independent journalism that I saw about this. This is going on out west, but they don't have an idea why they're protesting. To Gavin's point, it's far too many issues. They're protesting against the government, and they're protesting against taxes, and they're protesting against not having jobs, and they're protesting against not having the oil patch, and they're protesting against they want to be left alone, and they don't have a core message. And it doesn't resonate with the average Canadian, and they don't have the non-Lugan Press media to support them and promote their stories, because the Lugan Pressa are not covering how many ever thousands of these people are protesting in Edmonton, because no one is going hungry, no one is dying, and no one knows what they actually want.
Well, yeah, because I've seen them anti-Trudeau, anti-tax, pro-gun, and everything else. But it's okay, I can get behind a lot of the things that they're for, but if you're going to protest, you got to just pick one thing and just focus on one thing and just hammer on that. And you get that one thing done. If you try to protest 50 different things, no one's going to take you seriously.
I'm not suggesting we take something
our government is for, and I agree with basically that entire sentiment. But the problem is when our Lugenpresse is dependent on the 565 million, I forget the number, something.
Let's round up, call it 600.
$600 million of government funding that's about to be handed out based on their quote unquote, quality of journalism, then it's not getting coverage. They're not getting, any media coverage whatsoever. And so there's thousands of people here that are just not being represented in our media across the country. I don't know if it necessarily has to do with, like, if they had a united message just saying we need Trudeau out, do you think there'd be more media coverage? I don't.
No, but at least they would have a unified message that more people could get behind.
And that's the problem right now, is they don't need the Lugenpresse to promote their message. This isn't the 70s. There aren't 3 cable television channels. But there's no one that's covering the Yellow Vest movement in Western Canada. Yeah, I'm sorry. I called it Western Ontario. Fuck off. In Western Canada.
More or less
because no one knows what they're trying to accomplish, because it's a decentralized movement without any leadership, and as a result, everybody that shows up is doing their own thing. So even the independent journalism can't cover it.
I agree with the sentiment, but I disagree with your comment about do they need the Lugenpresse? And in general, do they need the Lugenpresse to be a movement? No. Do they need the Lugenpresse to have an impact on our elections? And I'd say yes.
And I'm 100% on board with that. But if they could get into the alternative media, and if they could get an actual following on, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and those things, if people would start paying attention to them, the Lugenpresse will pay attention, because that's what the Lugenpresse does. As soon as it becomes a thing they can get eyeballs on advertising. Look at all of these racists in Alberta. Look at them. They want to take jobs away from
racist. Yeah, like I think
at least then they'd be getting coverage, which is more than they're getting now.
Yeah, if they had a more unified message, they get more of the independent media, which would gain them more followers, and as they gain more followers, the mainstream media will pick it up and report fake news, but at least it's news. On these people, which will then grow the movement and give them coverage even more.
You guys, you could be right. I'm definitely not going to call you out on that. I question as to whether
they don't need it.
There's some level of intelligence that just says if we don't cover it at all, it goes away. And
I'm sure there is a lot of that.
Maybe you're right, Marty. Maybe that's the case. Maybe that's what the media party is doing.
But eventually, if it gets big enough, they have to.
Well, it's not even if it's big enough. Eventually, there's going to be enough advertising dollars at stake that they're going to, even if it's to just mislead the general public.
Yeah.
Like, eventually, there's going to be enough of a story there that they can use it to sell ads.
Yeah.
Well, I think
also we're arguing about what level of corruption our media is.
But that's where we're at. The government is going to give them $600 million for quality reporting, and by that I mean agreeing with the government's position.
So, we're basically having an argument here as to what level of corruption is it where it's where it's better for them.
Live in a serious country. We don't.
Right.
Where's my button? Somebody give me my honk honk button.
There we go.
But you hit the nail on the head too. I mean, if they actually had a face to put to the movement that they could call racist, right wing, whatever have you, you would actually get some coverage. But because it's so decentralized, like you said, no leadership, they don't even know who to pin the blame on at this point. So I mean, unlike Macron went out of his way to arrest the leaders, quote unquote, of the Yellow Vest movement, which took some fire out of their wind out of their sails type of thing. Who would you arrest in Alberta right now? Just random Joe laid off oil patch worker? No.
Well, yes, because random Joe laid off oil patch worker is probably a racist, according to our prime minister.
Carhartt flying the Yellow Vests.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. Let's do the outro. It's 10:30, and I've had a lot of beer. So, Gavin, where can everybody find you on the internet?
You can find me on the internet on Instagram at urbex_GTA, or next week in Las Vegas. Hopefully, Dave and I, who's been a panelist, will be able to sneak on for a little bit during Monday's show next week. If not, just follow the shenanigans on the Instagram. We'll be there.
What hashtag are you using this year?
I don't know. I'll have to figure that one out. But all right,
let's go with the good old standby of Op Syrup Drop.
Done.
Cool. Operation Syrup Drop. Hashtag Op Syrup Drop on Instagram.
Yeah.
Ian, where can everybody find you on the internet?
You can email me at theislandretreat@gmail.com, and you can also find me on Canadian Prepper Podcast on my YouTube channel, which is called The Island Retreat.
Marty, where can everybody find our show?
All right. You can visit us at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. We have a Facebook page at facebook.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast. And as always, although it doesn't seem like it, we will value your opinions. So you can
or ridicule you mercilessly, whichever.
That adds value.
We value the fact that you send us opinion. I mean, we will yeah.
Fair.
We will figure out a way of I'm losing my words. I've drank too much tonight.
I hear that.
Podcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com.
You can find me at RagnarokTactical.ca. That's where you want to buy all of your tactical accessories. If you're listening to the show, you should use discount code Patriot. Save 5% at checkout, and we do flat rate shipping, $10 anywhere in Canada. I have to apologize to Rod Giltaca because we're doing a podcast and he's not on it. This is what I do. Since Rod has become a big-time celebrity with his new TV show, he simply does not have time for you, our listeners. I'd also like to remind you that you are the true North, strong and free.